Hello, everybody. We're on the awesome journey, and unfortunately, Kelly's not with us today. Something came up, and it's just me and Lou. And so I'm doing the technical side. I'm going to confuse everybody, but we got it going. So if you don't know who Lou Valoze, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Here we go. Sorry, I gotta get my technical stuff going over to the other side. He is a retired undercover ATF agent. As you all know, that we do have, Kelly and I have this, we've got our hearts for our undercovers, we're our first responders, our veterans, and especially with the mental health for men. And I was excited because I finished Lou's book this weekend. So we're going to go into that. However, Lou's going to tell you about his background, how he started. Everybody, you know, we've had numerous ATFs, and I've been fortunate that I'm friends with. I think I have a friend in every single ABC agency, and it ends up that you find out who your friends are, and you find out who your frenemies are. But Lou was great about thinking outside of the box of putting on these stings. If you don't know what ATF is, it's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And the main thing is trying to get the bad guys off the streets and getting those firearms and going for it. So now, after all the journey that he went through, and not always as it's been good, but you know, the awesome journey is that we're on this side of the earth and it's not always good. We're in that messy middle of we call life. He's now a TV host on a show that I've caught, and it's actually very interesting, but I'm into that kind of stuff. So we're going to just sort of talk about that. As I said, Kelly's not here. She's the host. I'm just the co-host that interrupts everybody. And, you know, we've got a box here, and I was going to message him. Let me get the chats going here. As I said, I am having to do the back ends. There's Carlos. So Lou, start from the beginning. Besides that, you were born.
Well, you know, I didn't really have any aspirations to be in law enforcement growing up. You know, I was into football and boxing and all that, and I ended up going to college on a football scholarship and not really taking college very seriously. And so I was kind of lost when I got out of college with direction. And I just, by total coincidence, ran into this guy, a guy I played ball with in college, had invited me over to his place. He lived in the Bronx, and yeah, I was working at a bank. I was just totally making.
I'm sorry, I can't see you working at a bank. But
Yeah, it definitely wasn't me. So I go over to this guy's house, over to his apartment, and his brother comes over. And, you know, I've told this story a million times. He was driving a Corvette. He had long hair, and he was an Italian guy. And, you know, he had a Beretta in his waistband. And he was just a super cool dude. And he happened to be a DE agent, and he was working undercover. And so I met him. We sat down a half hour, and I started asking about his job, and as he started talking about his job, and he was talking with such passion and about what he does, and that's when the skies kind of opened up, and God let me know what my path was and what I was supposed to do, and that's when I knew I wanted to be an undercover agent. You know, I didn't want to be a uniform cop. I didn't want that. That wasn't my thing. I wanted to be an undercover agent. But then, as anyone will tell you, you don't just become an undercover agent.
no.
It's a process. So I started just taking the test for every alphabet letter agency out there, and I got hired. I happened to just score very high on the test, and I was able, because I was totally unqualified. but I got hired by what's now called ICE. Back then it was called INS, as a special agent in Los Angeles. And that was how I started my career. I didn't even know what ATF was until I was down at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and sitting at the table with my classmates. And, we all had to have really short hair, no facial hair. And we had these corny, like brown uniforms. And because, at that time, the Immigration Academy was very militaristic. And all of a sudden, the ATF guys walk in the cafeteria, and it looked like the prison just released some, and these walk in and they just look like gangbangers.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's where I need to be. I don't know what ATF is or what they do, but that's where I need to be, just seeing these guys. And so, I had great experiences before ATF. I was in Los Angeles during the 90s. I was out there during the riots. I was on an LAPD task force, and I ended up working on an LAPD task force with ATF and INS. And, I met and I was living with some of the ATF guys, Carlos Canino and John Carr, some of these guys. And, I knew I had to get over there, but it's a small agency. They weren't really hiring. And so I ended up learning how to be a cop out there. And there was just no opportunities for me to work undercover.
So you're an LAPD? I
was special agent with INS.
Okay.
Now ICE. But I was on a task force, LAPD task force. So we went, I had a desk over there. That's where we went. We did shift work with those guys, and we were just doing street corner jump outs, basically, on all these mostly Central American gangs that were just flooding into Los Angeles in the early 90s. MS-13 and 18th Street Gang. And so I really, I was out there working hand in hand with LAPD, with ATF. And like I said, that's how I learned how to be a cop. And it took me about 7 years, but eventually ATF opened up and I was able to get on, and that was 97. And
now, did you have to go back to Georgia to get trained through the ATS with Pat Kelly?
I didn't have to do the first half of the academy because, we had already done that, but I had to do the ATF portion, obviously. But back then, ATF was different. I got on with ATF, and I did an undercover deal my first day. We started working before we even went to the academy. They gave you a badge and a gun, and things were different, So, I learned the ropes. My partner, luckily, was an undercover guy when I got on, and he just started me working undercover right off the bat from the first day. And I started doing real small deals, meeting convicted felons and gang members in alleyways and parking lots, car washes, and doing small undercover deals, buying stolen guns off convicted felons, off gangbangers, off illegal aliens, and kind of built up my resume with those small deals because I knew eventually I wanted to do the long-term, totally embedded undercover operations that all these guys that I had met and kind of looked up to were doing. Guys like Jay Dobbins and Chris Bayless and all those guys.
Speaking of Jay, I have something I'm supposed to read to you. He was supposed to come on to surprise you. However, I got a message from him late last night, and he's like, Christy Lynn, I got called in for a talk. But, so if you don't mind, I'm reading his note to you.
Okay.
And then we can go into, one, how you guys met, because Jay's been on twice. And those who know, Jay isn't on social media. So when I try to get him on, it's sort of like a yes. So he just says that you are one of his all-time favorites. He was able to work side by side with you and be a first-hand witness to his expertise in covert operations. Lou was smarter than the rest of us, tougher than the rest of us, bigger and stronger than the rest of us, and more handsome than the rest of us. although the competition in that area was not too difficult to win, i.e. the Ugly Club, of which I'm a member. He is one of the all-time great undercover lawmen. I'm honored to call him a friend. Soon, when his show hits the Discovery Channel, because we've already gotten the first episode, correct?
Correct.
Because that's the one I saw. He is going to become a household name. Well, he's on the awesome journey. He's going to become a household name. The best parts about Lou are not what we read in his writing, see in his television appearances, or hear during his interviews. The best part of his humility are his humility, his transparency, and his honesty. Most men and women in his profession run out of fingers and toes when counting the times they should have died, but are here only by the grace of God. Lou has those hero stories too, but more importantly, he is fearless in his willingness to discuss the difficulties he faces along the way. Many times the emotional injuries we receive are more painful and longer lasting than the physical ones. Often they are self-inflicted. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Those sting the deepest. I know. So does Lou. Much love to the Awesome Journey audience, Christy, Kelly, and Lou. Put your dent in the universe. Keep helping people. Go be amazing. Change the world. And enjoy your chat with Lou. With respect and admiration, Jay Dobbins, if nobody knows who Jay is. So, and I agree with him because of the conversation we've had. I've read, and I'm pretty intuitional with people. Your transparency and honesty of just telling the story. You dance with your skeletons because your skeletons is going to help somebody else come through and say, I got to do it. So when you went into LA and you met Jay, and Jay had been an agent for quite some more time, correct?
Yeah. Bird is, I started in 91 and, I believe he started in the late 80s. So yeah, he had been on for a while.
He's
before.
old like me.
He is old. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so am I. I'm older than he is, but anyway. So when you got into really being into the ATF, how did you get back over to Georgia? And then you were down in Miami with Box. I mean, and being known as the person who sets up the storefront stings, because those are pretty cool. I mean, they're not cool, but they're cool how you did it.
Yeah. So the government put me in Georgia. When I got hired on, they gave you three options. I picked New York, LA, and Miami because I wanted to be where the action was. And those are generally cities that agents are trying to get out of, so I figured I was a shoo-in. And then the government in its wisdom put me in Georgia. But it for a reason, it worked out because my first partner, again, he just happened to be this insane undercover guy. And so I was able to just hit the ground running. And, the great thing was that they never said no to me. Everything I wanted to do, they green lighted. And, it's just not that way anymore. But
No.
I come up with these crazy schemes. I want to do a undercover shooting range that welcomes thugs. They didn't like that, but eventually they said, okay. So I, again, I lucked out. I ended up working, with all these guys all around the country on different undercover cases because like most of the other undercovers, I never said no. If someone needed me or needed somebody, I always raised my hand and said, I'll go do it. We all basically had the same personality. That
Crazy. Though that's my favorite song, Crazy. But did you stay in the same persona as Sal through across the board?
For sure. I learned early on that if you want to be a really good undercover agent, you can't try and it's not acting. You can't try and be someone you're not. You have to keep it very close to home. And so that was my persona. I was a Italian guy from the New York area who was a hustler. And, You know, so I never tried to fit in with any of these gangs. You know, I wasn't gonna become a member of the Gangster Disciples, you know, or the Latin Kings, or some white power group, but I could make them want to be a part of my hustle.
Right.
That's how. So I found it was more effective to keep it close to home, be myself, and make people want to be around me, make people want to see what my hustle is, and want, hey, you know, this guy's making money. He's got a hustle. You know, we can make money with him. Let's do this. And so that's how I approached undercover work. I kept it very close to home because I'm no actor, that's for sure. And I wasn't going to be able to really like change who I was and act like somebody else. So that always worked for me.
So how did you just wake up one morning and say, this is the sting I want to put together? I mean, how did you like all of a sudden say, I want a storefront. We want to, you know, you did the tattoo shop, Color Time Tattoo in Augusta. And I got to tell you, Petey.
Yeah. You know, like most things in life, I fell into it. There was no planning. You know, I spent more than the first half of my undercover career doing everything, right? I did biker infiltrations and murder for hire and street gang infiltrations, just gun trafficking group infiltrations. And so I was just saying yes, like I said, to everything.
Yeah.
I just got a phone call from an agent in Augusta, Georgia, and he said, hey, we're going to do a storefront. We have this informant that the local police they flipped this guy. He just got out of prison. He doesn't want to go back, and he's a tattoo artist. So we're going to open up a tattoo shop, storefront operation. He said, but we need someone, obviously, who's an out-of-towner to come in and be the manager and run it, right, and do the undercover. And yeah, I didn't even really know what a storefront was. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. Right. Because that's what I did. I said yes to everything. And man, were my eyes open. I went up there and it was the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, who are the police in Augusta, Georgia, and ATF. And they had set up this incredible place. You know, I mean, it was a tattoo shop in a bad area. I mean, it looked great. You would walk in there and, you know, no one's thinking this is some sort of police operation. The informant was this real, you know, he was kind of looked like a biker, but he was really into rap, and he had tattooed all those guys, the local guys, when he was locked up, and they all trusted him. And you know, so I just started buying guns and drugs and stolen cars and all sorts of things. And the next thing I knew, we had that. For 12 months, we were open, and we had bought 430 crime guns off the streets.
Wow.
12 months, and as much narcotics as we could afford. And this was when ecstasy was big, and they were just bringing in bags of thousands and thousands of pills. So once, you know, that was kind of the reemergence of storefronts. You know, they had been done before by the NYPD, by LAPD, but they were mostly just little pawn shop kind of businesses that were trying to disrupt like fencing operations and, you know, stolen merchandise. And we did this one, and just kind of, it went to the next level. And when, you know, ATF management, they love 430 guns, crime guns, in the evidence vault. And so when I was like, wow, I have been working these cases where I go undercover for years sometimes, and I lock up one guy or two or three guys. I just went undercover for 12 months and locked up 100 and bought 430 guns undercover, and all the, you know, so I was like, there's something going here. Let's do another one. Let's make it bigger, right, and better. So that's how it started. Then I just started getting these crazy ideas of making them bigger and better. And that was kind of the evolution of storefronts. And then it caught on. I started getting phone calls from agents all over the country. Hey, we want to open a storefront. Can you give us some direction or help? And next thing I know, I'm flying all over the country, helping people on their storefronts and starting up storefronts. We just had this great network. And, you know, I really think the ones that we did, me and my team, they were groundbreaking, and they really, I mean, just the results had never been seen before. That, no one was doing cases where you're buying 300 or 400 guns in less than a year,
Right.
locking up all those people federally. But like everything else, everything has a window, and it's just a matter of time before everything gets fucked up.
So do you think? Well, I probably know that answer because I know how the agencies are working now, and what they do to the people that have been successful. So during this time, you were married with children.
That's correct.
And we've had many conversations with people who, it's a tough life with the wife and the children, and it's very tough when you're undercover because you're in that persona and you're wrapped into that life. And then when you go home, it's how do you switch it off? And how did because as you said, you were going across country and you were fighting the bad guys, and it takes a strong woman to stand by their husband or man or wife. But I mean, how did that work? I mean, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, it didn't work. I total failure at that. And my wife wasn't some stay-at-home housewife. She's a professional. She's a physical therapist, well respected, and she has her own career. And she wasn't sitting around like, waiting for me to come home or any of that. She was working her career and taking care of the kids. So I didn't balance it well. I was a total failure when it came to that. I had all my priorities were undercover work. That was my priority, the job, and so I neglected that other part of your life that is the most important part, and I put undercover work first. And you miss everything, right? You miss the ball games and the dance recitals and all that stuff. You can never get it back. And you grow apart from your spouse. That's inevitable. And, that leads to bad things, bad behaviors. So when I look back at that portion of my life, I was a total failure. And, I've said this before. I started getting all sorts of awards just because of the sheer numbers of these cases that we were doing. Gang case of the year, 𝒐𝒐𝒆𝒏𝒆𝒚 drug case of the year, Project Safe Neighborhood firearm case of the year, all the agent of the year from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And, now when I look back on it, the awards that I wasn't receiving was Father of the Year, Friend of the Year, Husband of the Year, because I totally neglected all that. So when it comes to that part of my life, I was a total failure.
But do you think, because I do know that you go and speak to other law enforcements, and you're a speaker, and I don't know, maybe this is just who I am. Why agencies, when they're training, I don't know, sort of on their onboarding, explain that how to be able to balance it, but is it able to? I mean, I'm talking outside the box, but are you able to? I mean, even boxes, he's saying, and he's got a beautiful wife and everything, putting up with your shit, having to deal with, is my husband going to come home? And that's even with a cop. That's even with a first responder or a veteran. And when they come home, who are they going to be? So I'm always curious why agencies, and again, yes, agencies are not how they should be now, but why they don't bring that in to help the mental health. Because being in a certain persona, you have to have your mental in a certain place of, I got to go with the bad guys. and learning how to switch it. I don't know, maybe I'm just sort of babbling of having a wish list for everybody that I've seen with, have gone through what they've gone through.
Well, I don't know. I hope it's changed. I mean, there was certainly none of that for us when we were doing our thing. But it's a government agency. The government agencies care about the bottom line, right?
Right.
Care about the what you're doing. What the statistics are, right? How many guns have they seized? What are the asset forfeiture numbers? How much drugs? How many bad guys have you indicted and locked up? And they use those statistics to get more funding from
Right.
budget, and that's their concern.
They don't worry about the collateral damage. And even, Carlos,
Yeah,
we got to get you on the show next year, but you keep on ignoring my texts. You guys are your peers support system, which I want to go into when all of a sudden you find out who your friends are. You were so successful in Georgia, and then before you had that Dr. Drew, Doctor, I can't remember his name, but he was a murder for hire. And I always say on this show, you all are the real people, the things that we see on TV. Where do you think the TV gets these ideas? But you and Carlos and even Tom Smith, and I mean, everybody that we know have gone through this shit, have gone through, you're doing it for us, and you don't know us. You're making sure that we're safe. However, you're putting yourself on the line and doing stuff that, I want to go back to the time it was in Georgia, and it was where the shooting range was. And you just, you always had those guns, but there are certain times that you couldn't do anything, because if you did something, they would all know that you were law enforcement. So it's walking that line, very, very thin line of a tightrope. And as I told people, it's a great read. You can't put it down because it explains everything. And I just, and all these guys have written some great books, but with Lou, it goes back to when I was reading it, I could hear your voice. It was you talking. It was like, Cindy, you were just telling me all the stories.
Yeah, but and I've talked extensively about this with Jay. So when you talk about the sacrifices and everything, there's it was all voluntary, right? Nobody put a gun to our heads and said you have to do this. We volunteered, we raised our hands. So you can't be bitter at the system or mad at the system, right? That it doesn't do.
I can. I'm an American citizen. Yeah, I can. But that's another story.
Yeah. So I the only person I have to blame for all the mistakes that I made in my personal life, the only person I have to blame is me. I volunteered to do this. It was what I was meant to do, and it was what I love to do. So, the fact that I overdid it and I was allowed to overdo it, I'm not mad at any of my bosses or the ATF or the government or the system, because they didn't make me do it. I wanted to do it, and it was my calling, and it was what I love to do. So all the whole train wreck that my life became, and all the carnage, that's, I look at the mirror and I know who's to blame for that. But I was allowed to do like the only thing I ever felt I was really good at in my life, and I wouldn't. I don't know. It's a shitty thing to say, I guess, but I wouldn't change a thing. Because
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I've learned my own life, but I've learned through everybody else that we've talked to. When sometimes we have to go through those times that we're just like, I'm done. I mean, how many? I mean, just having that gun close by, I'm done. But knowing there's always a light,
yeah,
and your light came, and it was, and you can share the story, but I'll do this little bit. You had people that were in the government that I think that they just were jealous of your success, so they were going to bring your ass down.
yeah,
And
for
these
sure.
were people that you were working with and making them look good. And because of that, they pulled you so down. Yes, mistakes were made, but not professionally.
No,
There is nothing professional, and it always came out, nothing professional that they wanted to prove. However, they drug you through. It wasn't the dirt. It was pure shit. And
yeah, I mean,
that destroyed your life and your family life. However, how are you and your wife and children now?
it's great. It's better than it's ever been. But we had to go. We had to go through hell to get there, right? And we had to go
Yeah.
through that. But again, I would say that when it comes to, I have no bitterness. Even the people that were trying to lock me up and did me so wrong, I don't. I'm not. I don't wake up every day angry or bitter. I look at it. If you get drafted by the military during wartime and sent to some foreign land, to kill people, and you just have a miserable experience, and you get hurt, and you're messed up mentally, you have the right to be bitter and angry. I believe you had no choice in it, right? And so
Right.
I get that. But for us, for the whole undercover crew, again, it was voluntary. So I'm not saying you knew what you were getting into, but it was voluntary. And we all volunteered to do it. And then we volunteered over and over and over again. Send me back, send me back. So, um, I don't waste any of my time, I don't want to waste any time here in my old age, uh, being bitter or being angry, right? When I hit rock bottom, the absolute rock bottom, it was probably about 9 years ago, I guess. That's when I was out of my mind. Uh, the only way I saw out was suicide. No getting out. These people coming after me. I knew who they were, and I knew how they operated, and they could lock anybody up. They could make anything up. So, when I look at where I was, um, at that point in my life, you couldn't get any lower. You could not get lower. But I made the decision that I was going to crawl out of that hole. Right?
Good.
Made that decision. I, I was showing, for the first time in my life, I was showing weakness, and it was actually my wife who pointed that out, and basically, like, all this self pity. You couldn't be any less attractive right now with this whole self pity thing and all that. And I said, man, I can come out of this, and I crawled out, and I look at where I am, what I've done now. I put out a successful book, and Hollywood bought the rights to my book, and they're in the process of making like a Netflix scripted kind of series out of it. And I'm hosting a show on the Discovery Channel. So, you know, I look at it this way: like I win in the end. I won.
Absolutely. Because you had that choice to crawl out. And kudos to your wife. I mean, kudos to, it's tough to stay with a man that's broken.
Yes.
It's very hard, but love does conquer, and and it can come back.
Yeah.
You all had children. That tends to hold things together for reasons, whatever. I can't, I don't have kids, but I've always believed, we're in the messy middle, and that messiness can be so, as you said, you get to the point where it's just like, I can't do this anymore. However, when you crawl out of that dark hole, and this is how I look at things, when you crawl out of that dark hole, you can look back and go, yeah, I fucked up. I made some mistakes, but you know something? I'm a better person for this because I learned from it and I can go forward. And here, you wrote the book and Netflix buying that's very cool. But doing the Discovery Channel, you go in there and explain to people, because I could tell them what they do, but I thought it goes back to watching you. It's just sort of like, oh, it's just Lou. I mean, and you're doing what you do the best of understanding what needs to be done in towns. Explain to how you found that city out of all the cities to do the discovery, and is it going to different cities or towns?
Yep. So for that pilot episode, I went to a small city named Pickens, Georgia. Pickens, South.
And just to let people, it's Operations Undercover Guns and Drugs in Carolina, and it's on Discovery Plus, but you can find it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, so that's the title for the pilot. So the name of the show is Operation Undercover, and I chose Pickens for the first episode because my partner, the guy I was telling you about, my first partner with ATF, he's now the police chief there. So
okay.
That was, obviously he gave us full access and open arms, and he has his officers doing undercover work. So we've now filmed 7 episodes, and Discovery's going to air them they started airing it on September 10th. I basically go to different cities all around the country. We were in Kentucky, Colorado, Ohio. I gotta remember everywhere we were now. Other places.
Are they smaller cities, or are they known like Houston? Are they small towns or outside of towns or cities?
Doesn't matter. It can be both. Anywhere where they're doing undercover work. So I go there and we kind of embed ourselves with these undercover units, narc units, whatever the units happen to be, human trafficking units, and they give us kind of an inside look at their undercover operations. And there's no recreations. It is real undercover video. And we talk to the undercover officers. We talk to their bosses. We show exactly what they're doing. We show the takedowns when they arrest the bad guys. And it's given America an inside look at the heroes, the men and women who are still out there doing this work. And it gives them like an inside look. And it is badass.
It is
unbelievable footage with these departments who have let us in. And, obviously we block out the undercovers and we pixelate their faces, but you're getting a real look at real undercover stings that are happening all around the country now. It's not historical. These are happening now.
And it needs to be shown. So stings, I hear this whole thing that somebody gets stinged. People are calling and then or swatted. That's it. Is it swatted? Where people call and say, go to this person's house, and the SWAT unit shows up, though they're innocent. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's almost like a prank, but it's kind of serious. It's not really very funny. Yeah.
No, it's not funny at all because it's scary. And unfortunately, there's some not very smart people out there. Tell me more about what's your next steps?
Well, I'm scheduled to start working on the scripted project with the Hollywood company. So I'll be working with the writer, and he will be taking my book and making a first season out of it. He's going to do, I would imagine, the first storefront operation, and he's going to make a multi-episode first season. And, you know, I will be a consultant, obviously, because I was there. and that will get, you know, eventually that will be transferred, the script, to an actual show where actors will be hired, and it'll be out there and you'll be able to watch it. Season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. So that's what I'm about to do. We just wrapped up filming the first season of Operation Undercover on Discovery, and I plan on, as long as Discovery greenlights it, doing many more seasons of that as well. So I guess my immediate future here is going to be in the scripted and unscripted TV world.
So what's so cool about it is, with the book, are they going to go, you know, you always see TV shows that don't connect with the book. Do you think that they're going to fluff it a little bit more just to make it, or are you going to be able to say, hey, no, this is how it went?
Here's how I can answer that question.
I can't.
Two guys who I think, you know, Steve Murphy and Javier Pena, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Narcos guys.
Right.
I do a lot of presentations with those. So Steve says, if you watch Narcos, 33% of it is spot on. It's exactly what happened. About 33% of it is embellished. It happened, but they've made it better. And then 33% of it never happened at all. You can't really control that. They can say based on a true story. And, you know, once I sold the rights to my life, right? When they bought my book, I sold my life rights. So I don't have total control.
Right. You have no say.
So they'll keep it. I would imagine they'll keep it pretty true to what happened, but there's, you know, Hollywood is always going to embellish things.
Imagine that. Imagine that. Well, so how can we, Kelle, we're thinking about you, girl. You know, besides me promoting the book, how can we help you?
Right now, the best way to help me is to, you can go on Discovery Plus, or you can go on Max, HBO Max. Now it's just
Right.
Max. And you can stream Operation Undercover. On September 10th, you can tune in to Investigation Discovery and watch technically the first episode of the new season on September 10th on Investigation Discovery. And you can also stream it on Max or Discovery Plus at that time. And then they're going to show each episode every week on Investigation Discovery, and that's cool. Stream it. So that's that. Or
because we want everybody to watch it, because they need to be educated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about, it is such an exciting, cool show. No one's ever gone inside of real-time undercover work before. You know, they're giving us this access that's no one's ever had before. It's super cool. And then you can order my book on Amazon, Storefront.
And then write a review.
Write a review, yeah.
Because we need to make it a New York bestseller.
Sure, that would be nice. You know, I'm hoping with the show, with Operation Undercover, that people, you know, we've had all this anti-police sentiment for the last 4 years, it seems like. But, you know, I'm hoping this will flip the script and people will start saying, wow, you know, these cops who live in the same community, they're out there trying to make things better. They're not doing it to get rich. That's for sure. And
they don't.
They're out there doing it. And I hope people find a new appreciation, you know, for law enforcement, because what they're doing is they're really doing some incredible work out there. Really cool.
Well, I think people tend to forget that undercover, first responders, everybody, you know, veterans, everybody, they're out there protecting people that can't stand them.
Yeah.
But they're still doing it. So stop disliking people that are trying to protect you.
Yeah.
I mean, it blows me away. I mean, you know, my background is my first experience of the alphabet agency, I dated a guy in my 20s whose father was a DEA officer in Yuma, undercover, and he looked like Colonel Sanders. You know, the white beard, the headband. And then I dated a Secret Service agent, and then I dated a cop. And, I'm just, it just, to me, you all are you're heroes. You're brave. And I love the stories because it just, nobody else will go out there and do the shit, the crap. I know I'm not supposed to be cursing.
It's different kind of profession to pursue, especially when you specify and go into undercover work. And there's not a lot of accolades, or no welcome home after you've been on a case for 2 years. There's no ticker tape parades or anything like that. But that's not why you do it. No one I ever worked with was doing it for.
You're doing it to get rid of the bad guys.
Yeah, you're doing it for love of country and for unity, and for the men and women that you're working hand in hand with. That's who you're doing it for. So, again, there's no pity party. Anyone who's done it, I think everyone pretty much feels the same way. We had a great run, and we were allowed to do what we were born to do, and just be proud of the work that we did. And I like to think we made a difference. All those guns off the street, that made a difference.
Especially since they're with the bad guys. They're the ones that the guns don't kill people. It's the people behind the guns that are killing people. Just letting people know that. Well, no, I appreciate I'm glad that we finally got on. I wish Kelly was here. Wish Jay, because I had him come popping in next time. Because we're gonna get you back on, but we had you. I didn't want to cancel it because we had you scheduled, and we'll get you on at the end of next year or this year. This year is almost over.
Watch the first season of Operation Undercover. See what you think, and then call me and I'll come back on so we can talk about it.
Well, I watched that a few weeks ago, and then because I was reading your book, and I loved your book. I couldn't put it down. As I said, it was like you just talking to me, and that's always easy to get. It's easy to get through a book when you've talked to the person, but you can hear their voice. It's like it's not my voice in my head reading it, but I just think what you've done, but what you've been through, stop beating yourself up. And I know that's hard. I know too many of you all. I know it's very hard, but you had to go through this. You had to go through that to be able to get where you are today. That's my belief.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm in a good place.
Good. And I'm glad. Well, until next week, I will see you all. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing, but we will be taking a break. But I believe that we do have one more person next week. And prayers out to Kelly. And